just to introduce ourselves, so we are Matt and Jennifer Lucas from the franchising company, and we're happy to announce a brand new video series that we're calling our Franchise 40 ZorZooms. That's a mouthful. Um, Jennifer?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying more. In this series, we plan on interviewing some of our favorite franchises, asking them important questions, and hopefully getting information that you can't just Google and find anywhere. Questions you really want to know. So, our first
Our
interview is with.
Mr. Rob Flanagan, who is the president of Hounds Town USA. So, good morning, Rob, and thank you so much for participating in our brand new ZorZoom series. To get us started, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and Houndstown? We noticed that on LinkedIn, you are a self-proclaimed 80s music trivia expert.
Yes, way back when LinkedIn was like really booming, like I read somewhere you're supposed to put some kind of interesting tagline, and I put in I'm an 80s music trivia expert and an eggnog connoisseur. And it's actually played out. People actually see that, and I'm always getting 80s music trivia questions.
That's awesome.
Which puts me on the spot and makes me really nervous.
Question is, do you answer them correctly?
You know, it was amazing. I was on another webinar, and the person hosting it like pulled up an 80s song and was trying to play it through the speaker, but I couldn't hear it. And I just said, Take on Me by Aha. And that was the one he was playing. So completely random. I got lucky on that one. But yes,
I think you backed it up.
Driving around, I can name the song, I can name the artist, and I'm 50-50 if I can name the year.
That's pretty impressive.
Or really sad. It depends on how you look at it.
All right. Well, Rob, our goal with this series is to get insider information in a quick, digestible format. We're going to post the entire interview on YouTube and on our website, but there's also going to be 40-second highlights here and there with the most important information. So without further ado, let's dive in. So, Rob, can you give me a high-level explanation of Houndstown? What should a potential franchisee know?
Yeah, so Hounds Town USA is a doggy daycare and boarding concept, and we also offer spa services. But what's really critical is what makes us different in the marketplace to the end consumer. And our dog management approach, we are the only ones that uses our dog management approach that was created by Mike Gould, who is one of the founding members of the New York City Police Department's K-9 unit. And his brain just works differently, and he really sees the world the way dogs see the world. So in our concept, what we say is we do it for the dogs. In our society, as humans, we anthropomorphize dogs. We treat them like people. What we do is we create an environment where we create packs the same way dogs would create packs if they were out in the wild. We build our facilities from 18 inches off the ground. So the way dogs see that, we incorporate that into our build out. We have 5 play areas versus where most concepts have 3, because we create more highly specialized packs. And we train our franchisees to read dog, to understand dog behavior, and create the packs to what the dog actually needs versus just following a random algorithm. The example I use is my own dog. She is a Brittany Spaniel. She's 13, but she's still very energized. And a lot of other concepts, she would be put into the old lady group because she's 13. But that's not where she wants to be. She wants to be with the younger dogs who are still playing a whole lot. And at a Houndstown, we would read that and put her into the appropriate group.
That's so smart.
Great. So, as a franchise organization, can you just kind of describe your ideal franchisee? I know that they can come from many different shapes and sizes and whatnot, but for you guys, what are you seeing? Any common ground between your successful franchise owners?
Yes. So when I first started in franchising, this is a longer story, but I'm gonna make it really quick. I had somebody come in who was a CEO, good amount of money, a lot of business experience, and there was a stay-at-home mom. Long story short, stay-at-home mom became very, very successful. The CEO, it didn't really work out. And that really fascinated me. And it started a 2-year qualitative study where I went and studied hundreds and hundreds of franchisees to kind of distill it down to what helps a franchisee be really successful. So my answer is twofold. One is somewhat subjective, but it really comes down to grit. Does a franchisee understand that to create this dream of business ownership, it's a powerful dream, but it takes work and grit to get there? The second thing is more objective. What we're really looking for, of course, is the right capital to be able to start your own business and grow it to something really, really amazing. And then the second part of it is the ability to work within a larger system context and follow the program. The program is proven, it's highly successful, but it really comes down to surrendering to that process and just committing to it. We like to say, stay the core for 24. Follow the program for 24 months. It's proven. And then after 24 months, then let's get into conversations about anything else.
No, I love that. And quite frankly, that doesn't just pertain to Hounds Town. That's regardless of the franchise, to have that grit and determination.
Yeah, we really go deep into that. We use Zorkel, which is a personality survey thing. So we understand our stage of growth. We want a specific type of franchisee for our stage of growth that will change as we get bigger. But we use that tool to really help inform us on bringing in the right people. We're, as a brand, we turn away a lot of people, really just because we understand how important it is to make that right connection. It's a partnership for decades. And we want the right people that are aligned with our mission and are also aligned with the growth strategy.
That's
So
great.
backing up to the financial side, you mentioned, making sure they have the right net worth and liquidity requirements. Can you just kind of say what that is for Hounds Town?
Yeah, so right now it's a liquid 200K and then a net worth of 500K. Again, another tool we use is Bowfly. So even when the franchisee kind of submits their financials, we third party verify it. Not as a knock on the franchisee. Sometimes franchisees are kind of new to some of this. Just because your home is valued at a certain amount, I don't want people selling their homes to go make this work. So we do a much deeper dive. We also, in our FDD, are incredibly transparent. We put in P&L statements of locations that have been opened at least a year in our current FDD, so that franchisees aren't just getting this table that is really hard to really understand the nuances of a unit. And they can use that information to build out their own pro formas before they're signing the agreement to make that everything is working before the agreement is signed.
And as franchise consultants, we appreciate that transparency too,
Very
because it
much.
helps clients.
Yeah, look, what it really drives from is when I first got into franchising. This is a longer story, and I know you need 40 seconds, so I'm going to make it quick. But this is really important because this defines Hounds Town. When I first got into franchising, part of my job as I started at the bottom, and as a field coach, I had to help stores close. And I went out to a store in Boston, and it was a very stoic man, blue collar. They did everything right, and they bought the brand and the business for their son who had extreme special needs, and they wanted their son to work in a business, and they wanted to work with him. It's a heart beautiful thing. They had to close. It was just an economic thing, not the brand. And I helped them close, and I went to their home afterwards. And then that gentleman looked me in the eye and he's teared up. And he's saying to me, Rob, what am I going to do? I'm older. I can't get back into the workforce. And that hit my soul in such a powerful way, to the point where I loved franchising, but I was questioning, man, can I do this? Like, this is hard when that happens. And then I remembered 10x of that story. I remember 10x of the stories of people who had never run a business and had amazing things happen. But what I promised myself, and this carries over to everybody at Hounds Town, is that I have to be part of a brand that's doing everything to support the franchisees to achieve their dream. I have a sacred obligation to do that. So everything we put in place is driven to help a franchisee and to ensure they have the best chance of possible to achieve their own dreams. And we consider it an honor to be part of that journey for them.
Love that.
I love that. And just to piggyback off of that, you know, one of the most important reasons to join a franchise is for the support, not just from the corporate, but from their other franchisees, the other owners. Can you touch a little bit on the types of support and helping them through struggles and events and classes, any kind of training?
Absolutely. The way we talk about it is franchising, the franchisor is providing a car, and our responsibility is to make sure that car is at the leading edge in the marketplace. But the franchisee is the one that drives the car. We train them as best we can to drive the car, but you don't get an MBA from a franchise training program, right?
Right.
And so relying on the rest of your franchisees is an amazing resource. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So what we do is we have a kind of a message board, which is incredibly active with franchisees helping each other with best practices. We put on an entire webinar series throughout the entire year, every year, that goes through different explorations of best practices, where other franchisees are the ones that are presenting the information, not the franchisor. We put on an annual reunion every year, and that's really driven, yes, a little bit from us presenting things, but it's really also about franchisees who are a little bit on the more mature side of their business, giving back to the other franchisees that are going through the same thing. We have a robust advisory council that we really lean into. And all these things are not things you typically see in a brand of 50 units or 55 units. You see these in brands of 100+ units, but we've put these systems in sooner. We have committees where we, if there's a big initiative, we work with franchisees within a committee to get their feedback loops in. We use franchise business review on an annual basis to get franchisee survey responses back in terms of their satisfaction, so we can help mold our strategies to how those go. We do that survey before we set our strategy for the next year. So I just threw a lot at you.
No, it's all good though.
But the gist of it is, and I just believe this on the franchisor side, you want to lean into creating the processes and systems for franchisees to interact with each other as much as possible.
I agree. To your point, that's one of the biggest benefits to being part of a franchise organization. You know, yes, the support from the franchisor is very key, but having those fellow franchisees to share ideas and, you know, do different things with it can be a very powerful thing.
Well, it's the power of franchising. It's not just the franchisor, you know, kind of doing these different things. The franchisor is paying attention to the feedback loops. You get to understand what's going really well for your brand across the country, and then where are areas where you maybe need to focus on. And that's all being fed back from these franchisees that are out there doing the work day in and day out.
All right. So, you know, with Jennifer and I, and of course, I'm sure you guys get this question a lot too. So, you know, sometimes we have owners or, you know, potential investors that are, wanting to get into something for the first time, but maybe not quite ready to jump in with both feet and leave that corporate role day one. So is Houndstown a viable option for somebody that wants to start maybe semi-absentee?
Yeah. So it's the same word. We use the word semi-active. The way we talk about it is absolutely it is, but we spend time in the development process talking about what that looks like to make sure it's still the right fit. What I say, it's like when you get into running your own business, it's like having a kid. And do you want to just pass raising your kid to a nanny and then just checking in on the nanny on some KPIs once a week? No. So absolutely, you can open up a Houndstown by hiring a manager and being part of it. We do ask that franchisees who are semi-active are heavily involved in the day-to-day of the business for the first 90 days. That just has to do with operations. That manager you've hired gets married, moves, something happens. It wasn't the right hire. You, as the owner of the business, need to know more than your team on how to run it. Otherwise, you're going to be behind the 8 ball and be really affected. And we just want to speak through the realities of semi-active ownership to make sure that that transparency is there for the owner or potential owner so they can make the most right decision for themselves and their families.
And that's really great. That's you mentioned a lot of things. We try to coach our clients when they say they want something semi-passively, but I picked up on some of your points and I'm going to use some of them. I love it. So that was
Yeah,
good.
look, at the end of the day, it doesn't do the franchisee any good, and it doesn't do the franchisor any good. And so what we're leaning into is really just transparency. Hey, we would love for you to be semi-active. We just want to talk to you about the realities of what it actually looks like. And are you prepared for those realities? Because I've seen it over and over again where somebody comes in as semi-active, but they've never run a business before. They hire a manager, they pay for that manager to go to training, they put that manager on salary before they open, and then something happens with that manager within 90 days or 180 days, didn't work out. And now that owner of the business is like, oh my goodness, I have my other job, but now I got to go open my store.
Right.
So it's 100% doable, but it's just making sure the person is aware of the pros and the cons of it. Again, it's really in the spirit of making the most right decision for the individual who is investing a lot of money into this. And we just want to make sure it's the right thing for them.
That's perfect. So last question, I think you touched on how many locations you have, but give us an idea of how many are operating, been open at least a year, how many franchisees, multiple units, and what does your growth look like?
Yeah, so right now we're about 57 locations. We have by the end of this year, we should be in the low 80s. We're intentionally kind of keeping our openings in that 20 to 25 range each year. And for us, that's really just about a responsible growth strategy for the brand to ensure that we aren't getting ahead of our skis in that way. We have about 65 SNOs, to use a franchise acronym, sold, not opened. And they're in different stages of real estate construction and getting open. And we like to try to keep it within that balance for just where we are from a growth strategy. What I'm most proud about in terms of a brand is that multi-unit conversation. So we have a lot of franchisees who are moving on to their second unit. When I talk to people who are looking at franchises, not as a broker, but just as somebody on the side of it, I say always look at a brand, see how many multi-units they've sold, but take a look at how many of those people are actually opening the second unit or the third unit. That's a really strong indicator of the strength of the brand behind the scenes. We're very specific on multi-unit ownership. We are 100% open to it for the right fit. I'm speaking just as a franchise person who's been doing this for 20 years, how many people end up buying multiple units, but end up only opening one, and they never open up the second or the third one. And that's usually driven from capital. And then it's also driven from the business acumen it takes to develop, and it takes years to develop that, to learn the business and then move into multi-unit ownership. So we're very open to it, but we're also very similar to the semi-active. We're very transparent about what it looks like.
No, that's great. Again, putting your franchisees first. I like it. So before we head out, is there anything else that you feel would be really important for someone that is interested in this space to know about Hounds Town?
You know, I think and this goes beyond what you can ever see in an FDD or anything along those lines. It's understanding that this brand is driven by two purposes. One is our 10-year target is that every dog in America has access to Hounds Town. We feel so passionate that our dog management approach is so incredibly beneficial for dogs. It allows more people to own dogs, and we believe that dogs make us better humans. That really drives everything we do. And then on the second side of it is really coming from the franchise space, that we lean into the emotion of what a franchisee is going through, especially if this is their first time getting into business ownership, and what that journey to freedom looks like. We lean into their why statements. We just had a training, and we had a gentleman who, got a little emotional because he was talking about how he got into this so that he could be around his kids more often. That's really powerful. And I'll be honest, it's easier not to lean into that. It's easier to look at a franchisee as franchisee number 99. Here is your program. You go run it. If you're not doing well, it's your fault. That's easier, but that's not what we do. We lean into the heart, the soul, the passion that individual franchisee is bringing in. We operate from a perspective that when you've met one franchisee, you've only met one franchisee. And we lean into that emotion. It creates more complexity, but it creates a much more powerful franchise system at the end of the day.
No, that's fantastic. Well, thank you again so much for joining, especially as our very first interview.
No pressure.
Exactly. So we certainly appreciate it. I know that our clients will appreciate it as well. I'm sure that they and everyone else will find this information very helpful. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Rob.